So big day today, we're at Cadwell Park to put all 7 of these bikes through their paces on the track without any speed limits, where we can push the suspension, push the technology and get a proper feel for what they've got on offer. And I've got my mate Tim with me. He's been warming up. The track's drenched at the minute, but he's doing really well selling hats. It's that kind of weather, isn't it?
If you want a hat, check out my Facebook.
timneve.com.
We're here at Cadwell Park now. We've been running these bikes on the road. It's time to dial in some electronic settings that are more suitable to the racetrack. So this is a job for a grown-up because A, these guys have got little diddy fat fingers and they'll press all the wrong buttons, and B, they probably won't even remember to do it. So what we need to do with these is we need to really be putting the suspension into a fixed mode. They all give you that option to do it. We'll be winding back the traction control, and then where we can, we'll probably switch the ABS off, ideally. We can't do it on all of them. We'll turn the engine power up, and we'll probably turn the wheelie control off, just 'cause.
So it's been a fantastic day at Cadwell Park. I'm knackered, you're knackered. Can we say knackered?
Bollocks, mate.
Bollocks! We've lost 2 things. We've lost the John and we've lost Kawasaki's ZX-10R. So we're going to put one here for your benefit. Unfortunately, the bike's lost on track. It is what it is. Something has to come last. And this year, it's been Kawasaki's ZX-10R. We're not saying that Kawasaki hasn't made the bike better, because it definitely has improved over what we've known before. But up against this arsenal of brilliance, just hasn't made the cut, has it? It's just been one of those. It's kind of lacked in most areas.
It has been a bit like splitting hairs, this test, hasn't it? And they're all just so good that it's, what do you do?
The technology on it is up there with the best. You know, it's really useful. It's relatively simple. It's not the most easiest to navigate your way around, but it works well on track. But that's where kind of the bar drops, isn't it? Everything else, you know, the handling, the agility, the stability, even the power delivery, just did not have what it needed to fight against the others.
Average, really.
Average has been kind, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
This context up against these rivals, it just felt long and slow at handling, and it felt that little bit softer, more wallowy, you know.
Bit of a boat, really, wasn't it?
It was hard work. Chris curve, places like that, when you wanted to wind on the throttle, you were really having to work hard to keep the bike back in line.
Yeah, so my feeling was it was just that little bit heavier to change direction. It felt long. The power was a bit numb. I mean, it was nice once you got it going, but bottom end just seemed didn't feel like 1000cc, if I'm honest with you.
The brakes were, they were okay, you know, but they weren't anywhere near as good as the best.
I think the chassis actually suits the brakes, because you're in quite a low, long position, which is good for brakes, which I always felt like that before, but the actual brakes themselves aren't up to much, really, are they?
I reckon if you even just put a decent pair of pads in it, it would make a huge difference, because for me, there wasn't that initial bite. I don't think that the brakes were horrendously weak. There just wasn't anything there making that purchase. I guess the bottom line is we've had a session each on these bikes, and you know, with the Kawasaki, and like we said, not having that opportunity to go fettling and changing things, we've taken them on face value. Johnny Ray is out there smashing it on the ZX-10R. It's an amazing bike. I dare say if you owned one of these, you could make yours great too, but out the box, as ours is, just hasn't cut it. So in number 6 is Yamaha's R1M. I'm going to do that again because I said... So in at number 6 is Yamaha's R1M. It's a cracking bike, but Tim has had good reason to place it where he has. Tim, what was so wrong with it?
For me, the worst bit about it was the brakes.
Okay.
It wasn't so much the ABS. I did have the ABS kicking in, but it was just a general feel of the brake. It just felt like you had to keep squeezing it and squeezing it and squeezing it to get it pulled up, and it's a bit unnerving when you're attacking a corner.
It's certainly got a unique feel, hasn't it, when you are squeezing those brakes, like you say, that wooden vagueness, and then I guess at the end of it, when you are squeezing, a little bit of ABS as well.
Yeah, which is always unsettling, isn't it?
I mean, the tech in general, you've actually rated the lowest of all the bikes here. So again, you know, why have you placed it there?
He's got good tech on the bike, and that's why it's hard to place it so low down the field. So the anti-wheelie was quite aggressive, and when it came in, the ignition cut was a little bit too aggressive, and it just dropped the front wheel instantly. The other bike seemed to do it in a more subtle manner.
Yeah.
This just seemed quite aggressive.
Yeah, so it was harder for you to extract the best out of this bike when you kind of had that impediment coming.
When you want to come off a corner and drive hard, the last thing you want is something going "Brr" and dropping you down. So yeah, that's what affected the tech scoring for me.
So handling, so the agility, the stability of the bike, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I was a bit shocked really, because sitting on it, it's one of the narrowest bikes and I thought it was going to be so nimble and brilliant, but unfortunately I found the suspension a little bit too soft. I know it's electronic suspension, but it didn't seem to work as well as some of the others with electronic suspension, and it just seemed a little bit too soft. Yeah. Another point really was the initial throttle pickup comes in with a little bit of a bang, which then unsettles the suspension, and it all just seems to roll into another problem.
I completely agree. You have to kind of tune your head and your hand into that throttle pickup because it is really quite harsh. When that motor gets going, I mean, it's beautiful. It's just a nice, torquey, punchy engine, isn't it? It's got loads of character.
Yeah, on the faster, more flowing corners, I actually really liked it, and the motor is mega, feels really torquey, and the noise, you can't help but smile, can you?
Beautiful.
It sounds ace, but it's just a shame really, the slower speed stuff seemed to let itself down a bit.
So I know this bike was updated only last year really for 2020, but there's just some better bikes out there with better engines, better handling characteristics and more usable technology. That's how it is. So it's new, it's mighty, it's the most powerful bike on the test, but it actually finished 5th on track. Lots of reasons for that, but let's start, Tim, with the best bits.
Best bit for me, and it stood out straight away, was the change of direction, how light it felt.
Beautiful.
It just wanted to turn, like minimal rider input. It just felt so easy on you, nothing on your arms, just really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super lightweight bike, and then they're going to put these really lightweight carbon fibre wheels in it, and you really do feel the benefit of those, don't you?
Yeah,
especially through the chicane.
So another great area for me with this bike was the brakes. The initial bite was brilliant, the ABS wasn't intrusive, loads of feel in the lever, and yeah, they did the job how they should do.
I mean, they really did stand out as fantastic, you know, in a lineup with good brakes largely throughout. These were some of the best, and like I say, nice and predictable and instant bite and just great. But I mean, for all its strengths, you know, the bike did come up short in a few areas. I mean, one area where you marked it down was the stability, which I understand having ridden this bike, especially on corner exit.
It's a bit of a shock because obviously we did so well on the agility. The stability, unfortunately, it all stems back to the problem that we've had with the throttle and the drive. So when we was asking for throttle at lean angle through Charlie's 1 and 2, for example, he was doing nothing. So as I would roll it on, the revs just weren't picking up.
When you're winding that throttle on, there's this kind of numbness from the throttle at full lean, and then it went mental, didn't it?
Yeah, it just gives you nothing, and as soon as you start to pick it up, it's almost like lean angle activated.
Yeah.
As soon as you pick it up, you get all that power. I mean, it topped the dyno.
Yeah.
And that's what's affecting the stability. The suspension can't cope with it. It's going soft on the rear and making it go light on the front.
It's not got electronic suspension, it's not got DDC like an S1000RR. You know, it is what it is, it's set how it's set. We haven't gone Fettlin. It just felt really kind of under-supported, under-damped, and just able to kind of, I don't know, start moving without much encouragement. So the tech on the bike, so again, it wasn't your favourite.
Yeah, so we had it in race mode. Race Pro mode. Race Pro mode.
Race Pro.
So we had it in Pro race mode. So we had it in race Pro mode, but we were still getting a few wheelies, weren't we?
I mean, I wound this off to -6, Tim took it to -7, and we both felt that we were getting too much intervention. Cadwell Park is unique. Anyone that's ridden this track knows it's got its own little idiosyncrasies and it challenges bikes in ways that other circuits don't. But it was almost like the tech wasn't keeping up with the circuit a little bit around here, you know, in traction. But like you were saying about wheelies as well, I mean, that was another bit.
Yeah, a few spiky wheelies, to be fair, and it just didn't seem to be controlling them too much. But I did have nice warm hands, the heated grips were mega.
Beautiful.
So a quick disclaimer for you guys, I've just been back out on a BMW, and this time we turned the traction control completely off and it worked an absolute treat. I was able to pick the throttle up and it would drive exactly how I wanted it to. However, most of you aren't going to want to ride with the traction control turned off. It's 200 horsepower, in your right hand, then it's a risky game. So the reason we left it on for this test is to keep everything equal. We've had every bike on its minimum setting. It's just a shame the BMW didn't perform quite right with it on.
The Suzuki is one of those bikes that is just nearly brilliant. It's good in so many different areas, and ever since it came out, it's kind of been up there in our tests, but never the best bike. I guess that's why this year it's finished 4th in the track test. It's just starting to be left behind that little bit. It's got some great features about it, it's got some great elements, but it's also got a few handicaps, hasn't it?
Yeah, like you say, it does everything well, but it's just not, there's nothing really that stand out about it, is it? No. Is there anymore? But I mean, it's got a great chassis, it turns brilliantly. We didn't rate it that high in the agility. No. I think probably because the suspension is just a bit too soft. Yeah. It's not on electronic suspension, and the factory setting is just pretty mushy, really, to be honest.
Probably suited the road a lot better than it did the track, and if we got stuck in, you know, with the twiddlers, would make it a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like it wants to give up the support quite early on. You know, that suspension can soon get tied in knots. So, you know, again, maybe we could dial some of that out, but definitely not the quickest in direction changes. But I think also in terms of stability, far from the most stable. The brakes are actually quite reasonable. I will say, I've found their limit, you know, even on track today. You know, it was a bit embarrassing halfway through a pass, you just accelerate on as the ABS kicks in. But I only had that happen once. You know, typically, if you treat those brakes well, they deliver, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that it was as intrusive as some of the other bikes.
No.
And that's why it ended up, I think, 2nd in the brakes. Yeah. We rated it really high.
If you wanted to show off to your mates down the pub, do not buy this bike, because it's not got the glitz and the glamour, but what it has got is some cracking systems that just keep that front wheel low, you know, keep that traction, you know, at its maximum without holding you back. It just works, doesn't it?
The screen's like something out of the 90s, isn't it? It's very, not even got colour.
No. You know this bike better than any of the others. This is, you know, the road-going bike of what you actually race.
Yeah.
So you know how good things can be, you know, in all areas. So it's probably got the toughest test, because you're comparing your race bike against this street bike, you know, and there's a lot of money in between them and a lot of tech and spec and all the rest of it. So, you know, all things considered, it hasn't done bad, has it?
Yeah, it's done well. And one thing that always stands out to me is the throttle connection.
Yeah.
I go on about it on every bike I ride, but this is, it's literally just in your hand, silky smooth, and that's what I really like about it.
In at number 3, Honda's Fireblade. I've got to say, this is probably one of the best bikes you can ride on track. It's so exciting. It's got an engine that just gives and gives and gives once it gets going. Yeah. And it's got a front end feel like no other. It's awesome. But it's not completely perfect, is it?
No, like you say, the best thing about this bike is probably the chassis.
Yeah.
How firm it is, how stiff it is. It gives you all the feedback. You know exactly what's going on underneath you. It's got the suspension to back it up. It's firm, isn't it?
Yeah.
It works just like racing suspension. But there's some big areas which lets it down, isn't there?
Yeah.
Brakes being the biggest.
You've got this brilliant engine, like you said, you've got a great chassis. You know, you can use this bike, even with the awkward gearing, you can actually make the bike work.
Yeah.
But I can't get past the brakes and the ABS. It just, it rattles me in a way that no other bike's brakes or ABS actually rattle me. It's got the better of me.
We've said it's got the best front end on it, but it's hard to feel like you can really use it because of the brakes. You can't attack a corner.
No, you can't go ploughing in with utter confidence, with any confidence really. I know that sounds really harsh, but if you're lucky enough to take one of these bikes on track, you will feel exactly what we're saying. It's a brilliant bike, let down with those brakes. It's just so hard to get over that massive hang-up. It's such a shame.
But thankfully for Honda, they've managed to pull it out of the bag with the engine, haven't they? Like the power. Is the drive. We've rated it fairly high on drive. You feel like you're on a race bike, don't you?
It's amazing.
It's just getting your head around the gearing. The road gearing is really tall, which you have to use a gear less everywhere. But once you get it singing, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
The power just comes on so peaky and so strong, and you have got to get your head around that. I mean, the fueling's very good, but because you are running it quite high up the res because you're a gear lower than maybe where you should be, you actually have to kind of tell yourself, all right, when I touch that throttle, it's going to be strong, and I've got to commit to that. And in fairness, the chassis can take it, can't it?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, all day long.
What do you think of the agility of the bike?
I think it's pretty good. It's not by any stretch the best, but it's not the worst. I think it's not got the carbon wheels, it's got a real low centre of gravity, it feels low, and I think what it's gained in stability, it's probably lost a little bit in agility, but I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's that middle ground kind of position in changing direction, isn't it? It's far from the worst, but I would sooner have that front end feel and that kind of corner hugging nature over, you know, a little less effort in changing direction. You know, it's one of them, but.
So all bikes have got the niggles, and for the Honda, it's just probably an ABS fuse and a gearing change away from being like a perfect track bike, really.
Yeah, so much potential. So the bike that finished in second is this, Aprilia's RSV4 Factory. It was an amazing bike last year, and they've made it even better for 2021. The most impressive feature on this bike for me was the way it handled and the way it felt. I mean, Jesus, you could do anything on that, couldn't you?
Yeah, you literally just felt so at one with the bike, didn't you? The chassis gave you all the right feelings, the feedback was perfect, the suspension was brilliant. It was just what you wanted, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I will say there was some light bikes in this class and some bikes with carbon fibre wheels, and I will say that's the only place I'd mark it down in the handling area, that it maybe was a little bit more physical than some to get it turning, but it just was it was stuck to the ground.
The electronic suspension just works perfectly, doesn't it? It literally felt like I was on race suspension, which is pretty special for a road bike, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the difference is, I mean, we should say actually this is the bike that did the fastest time around it. So 35.4 was the time for this bike on Cadwell Park with you know, stock everything and kind of road track tyres. That's decent. That's not a bad lap time at all. Tim was the fastest. You know, once you started pushing those boundaries, you started finding a few problems, didn't you?
Yeah, so as I started to push on and my lap time dropped, I really started to find the limitations. So the ABS actually started to kick in a little bit. I don't know if that was just through pushing the tyres or what it was.
So another area where Tim was pushing the limits to the max was the mountains. So wheelie control was an issue, but actually you weren't wheeling the bike, you were jumping it, but then you were landing it, and then what was happening?
So I was landing on the throttle, expecting to keep moving forward, but it would land on like a cut for the anti-wheelie overriding it. So I'd land on, I'd nearly put my head through the window screen a few times, which was a bit sketchy, but also coming out of barn, when I was accelerating hard in first, second gear, you just get a bit of a drop on the front wheel, not too aggressive, but I could feel it.
Fueling on this bike is quite lazy, low down in the revs. Like if you're in second trying to get out the hairpin, it just seems to take forever. You've got to use first, but then you get this massive intervention, which is what we found on the drag strip. It is what it is, but...
And we noticed it straight around the road, but I never thought it would translate to the track. I never thought we'd feel that flat spot. So the last talking point really is the power, and once you get through those little niggles on the slower corners, it's actually mega, and it comes on so strong, doesn't it? And it just wants to keep pulling and pulling, and great motor.
I mean, it's a typical V4. You've got the best of both worlds. You've got that torque, and you've got those revs, you know, and it just plows you forward, puts a big smile on your face. Sounds awesome. I loved it. You loved it. Here it is, second place.
So it was nearly a clean sweep for the Ducati, wasn't it? And we rated it high in every category, and obviously it won.
Yeah. I mean, best bike on track, and for lots of different reasons. I don't know where to start. I mean, great brakes, great handling, great agility, really good feel. I mean, it was just up there in everything. I think that's the thing. Some bikes were better in some areas than others, but then lacked in others, whereas the Ducati was quite consistent. It was around that top 3 in everything, you know.
Yeah, and that's what it takes, doesn't it? For me, the first thing that stood out was the throttle connection and how it delivered the power right through the rev range in the slow corners, the fast corners. It was always in your hand, never felt like it was going to be too much or too little. It was just faultless, really. Like literally the best throttle connection I felt.
Ducati's kind of gone home. They've done the homework. They've put the lightweight wheels in it, the better brakes. They've made it a different package. I think even it going to Euro 5, and on the dyno we lost quite a bit of horsepower with this bike compared to last year's, but that has actually made it easier to ride. It's no longer that brute that just wants to rip your arms off and tie the bike in knots. It was relatively stable, wasn't it?
That electronic suspension, again, feels a lot like race suspension, which for a road bike, it's mega, isn't it?
Yeah, and the tech, I mean the tech, how good is that?
Yeah, the tech stood out massively. It's the only bike where you could actually come off a first and second gear corner and literally go to 100% throttle and get no wheelie. And you knew it would be wheelie on any other bike, but it just worked it all out. So fluid.
So on track, the lighter the bike, arguably the better it's going to be. And Ducati's already had a lightweight bike here, and they've given it carbon fibre wheels, which translates fantastically when you're trying to change direction. I mean, wow, what a weapon.
Yeah, through the gooseneck and the chicane, it was just so easy. You didn't have to put loads of effort into it. It just helped you turn, and it's backed up by the stability as well, isn't it? With the suspension, it turns and it handles brilliantly.
Yeah, and it's telling as well. You know, all the time it's going on. I'm not going to say it's the most stable of the bikes. It is stable, but it's not the best in that area, but it just offers you lots of feel, and you can work with that, can't you?
Yeah, you can feel everything working, and again, it fills you with confidence to open that throttle and just getting all the right feedback from it.
So here we are at the end of an absolutely epic test. We're finished on track after 4 individual visits to Cadwell Park. The weather has not been kind to us, but No Limits and the staff at Cadwell Park have been fantastic. More to the point, these bikes have been fantastic. It's been pretty awesome, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been good. It's been a challenge, but it's been absolutely mega to ride all 7 bikes on the track, test them back to back. Shame about the weather, but we've finally got the job done. It's been really unpredictable as well, and yeah, these are the 3 finalists.
The bottom line of it is, any of these bikes you could buy and have an epic time on track. They are all so good, and in fairness, all 7 bikes kind of proved themselves on the circuit, and you know, they all gave us a great time. But if you want the very best, pick these 3 in this order here. So where do we go from here? Well, obviously now the test is concluded. We've done all the data stuff with the drag strip and the dyno. We've done all the road riding, we've got the scores from that, and now we've got the track scores. So overall, we can now reveal our finalists. The top 3 bikes are the V4 SP, the Aprilia RSV4, and BMW's M1000 RR. They've been absolutely fantastic. They've blown us away, and they have well and truly deserved their spot at the final at Portimao. We will be heading out with No Limits track days on the 5th to the 7th of November with slicks from Michelin, to give those bikes a proper see-into on track, to define which of those 3 is the very, very best bike on track, the ultimate sports bike of 2021. We'll see you there. Yeah.